Committee meeting of council. I've called the meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda for the collective committee meeting is the public input. Anyone of the public wishing to address council may speak once, up to 5 minutes on any topics. Does anyone wish to come forward? Seeing none, I'm going to say the public input section's over. The first item on our agenda is Planning Commission, the Lakefront Mixed Use Development District, which will be having a public hearing on April 27th. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you. As you stated, we have two items from Planning Commission that were recommended to Council for consideration: the Lakefront Mixed Use Overlay District and also the rezoning from an I-2 to a B3. And also, as you stated, there will be a public hearing on April 27th, 2026.
Okay. Anything further on that?
No.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, we have representatives from both ALERG and our city attorneys here present. They can make a presentation on both of these items, and we'd like to give them an opportunity to do so at this time.
Thank you. And as I indicated, and I think you gentlemen were probably made aware of, that we moved this up to the front of the agenda for you to have your comments, and that I was going to be limiting it to a half-hour discussion. So I don't know who wants to go first, or
Scott, did you want to go?
please state your name.
Scott Reschley. I am with ALERG.
Thank you.
And good evening, Council President, Council members, Mayor, other officials, and residents of Avon Lake. My name is Scott Reschley, President of Shar Environmental Redevelopment Group and Managing Member of Avon Lake Environmental Redevelopment Group, the owner and developer of the former Avon Lake Power Plant site. Thank you for your time and your service and your thoughtful consideration of this important proposal. On March 24th, we had the honor and opportunity to have the Avon Lake Planning Commission here and unanimously recommend the proposed Lakefront Mixed Use Overlay District that is now in front of you all before you tonight. During that process, the Commission raised questions and made recommendations that we incorporated into the proposed text that is before you, that strengthens the text to provide guardrails for height, setbacks, and uses as the next developers bring their plans before the Planning Commission and the City Council in the future. For almost a century, this site powered the region. It was an important economic engine for Avon Lake. But it has also created a physical and visual barrier between this community and one of its greatest natural assets, Lake Erie. Today, that chapter is closed, and now, together, we have the opportunity to shape what comes next. The proposed Lakefront Mixed Use Overlay District aims to transform this site into a vibrant, walkable, publicly accessible lakefront district, one that includes a mix of housing, restaurants, retail, office space, parks, trails, and waterfront amenities. But just as important as the vision is the framework behind it. This ordinance is not speculative. It is not open-ended. It is a purpose-built zoning tool designed specifically for a site of this size, complexity, and importance. It provides the flexibility needed to make redevelopment economically viable while ensuring strong city oversight, specific development standards, and long-term consistency through the site plan approval process. It also signals to the public and real estate markets the city's desire and intent to see this property redeveloped as a mixed use. One of the most important aspects of this ordinance is that it builds public benefit directly into the code. It requires, not suggests, a minimum of 20 acres of publicly accessible shoreline parkland, pedestrian and bike connections linking the lake road to the waterfront, protection of the views of Lake Erie through building, spacing, and orientation, a true mix of uses that creates activity throughout the day and across seasons. signals to the investor, developer, and community the support of the community and council to the redevelopment of these uses. At the same time, it clearly prohibits uses that would detract from this vision, ensuring that what is created here is high quality, lasting place, not a continuation of industrial or incompatible uses. We also recognize that with a project of this scale comes important questions about density, height, traffic, and compatibility with surrounding neighborhoods. The zoning overlay district, or the zoning overlay text, was first developed in collaboration with the City of Avon Lake administration and consultants and preliminarily approved in 2024 by the City Council through an interim redevelopment agreement. Through the subsequent zoning ordinance approval process, we had multiple meetings with the Avon Lake Planning Commission where we made direct text changes to address their comments as well as addressing direct comments from public residents. The Avon Lake Planning Commission then, as I previously said, unanimously recommended that this text move forward to City Council and this lakefront mixed-use overlay district as it directly addressed the appropriate zoning attributes, including a defined maximum building height with lower profiles along the lake road, controlled residential density across the district, setbacks and transitions near adjacent properties, ongoing review and approval of each phase by the Planning Commission and City Council, and a minimum of 4 defined mixed uses. This ensures that development is not only well-designed, but also phased, measured, and responsive over time. I also want to take a moment to reflect on how we arrived here. This has been a long-term commitment. For more than 5 years, ALC has been the land developer of this site and has worked in close partnership with the City of Avon Lake to plan the future of this site. During that time, as the developer, we have acquired the site, paid taxes every year, completed extensive environmental remediation, including asbestos abatement and hazardous material removal, making Avon Lake safer every day. Successfully managed the complex demolition of the former power plant, coordinated with regulated agencies such as Ohio EPA to ensure the site is safe, stable, and ready for redevelopment. And we entered into a purchase agreement of the parkland with the City of Avon Lake, ensuring public access and park use of the lakefront. And we did this through some challenging times, as we all know. COVID-19 pandemic, major supply chain disruptions, significant construction cost inflation, and rapidly rising interest rates. Despite all that, where other developers may have failed and given up, we stayed committed and continued to do the right thing. We continue to invest in Avon Lake, spending tens of millions of dollars. We continue to move forward in partnership with the city. And today, because of that persistence, this site is no longer a liability. It is ready to deliver an opportunity. This project also represents significant long-term investment in Avon Lake. Over time, it will generate new tax revenue, create construction and permanent jobs, attract residents, visitors, and businesses, support local restaurants and retail, and enhance the overall value and vitality of the community. But beyond economics, this is about a quality of life. It is about creating a place where residents can walk along the lake, gather in parks, enjoy local businesses, and experience a waterfront that has not been fully accessible for generations. The beginning of this approval process is not just about a zoning text. It sets the expectations and processes for future plans to come before the city under this text and your planning commission and city council process. It is also about whether we take a thoughtful, structured step forward, reconnecting Avon Lake to its shoreline, transforming a legacy industrial site into a community asset, and creating a place that will serve residents for generations to come. And we are here today with more than just a concept, but with a site that is prepared for the next phase of redevelopment the opportunity of the development grounded in your code, and a team ready to deliver and that has demonstrated its commitment over time. We respectfully ask for your support of the Lakefront Mixed Use Overlay District and the opportunity to continue working in partnership with you to bring this vision to life. Thank you for your time, your leadership, and your consideration. I'm going to hand it over to Todd Hunt, our attorney, to also add a couple of remarks.
Thank you. Mr.
Hi,
Hunt,
Scott.
welcome.
Yes, I think most of you know me. I've spoken many times here, I guess, on this particular subject. I am an attorney at Retzel & Anderson, Cleveland, and I've been representing ALC-TV for the last 4 years, working with the city attorneys, working with city staff to put together what you have before you this evening in this text amendment. And I would emphasize, I think more so for the audience than for the council, because I think you realize what this is a text amendment. It is not rezoning Allard's property. We're going to still need council approval, or whoever the vertical developer is, once this is in place, to have that overlay district placed on the property through a rezoning process, which is a very detailed process through the Planning Commission, through council. And with that, it requires a very detailed site plan that would come with that rezoning to that overlay district, which would be before Planning Commission and through council. As Scott said, this really does provide some very substantial regulations. It gives the city really what it desires, which is a minimum of 20 acres of parkland, and protections that Scott mentioned with respect to height, setback, et cetera. And it also provides enough flexibility, I believe, to developers, vertical developers, to feasibly, economically feasibly develop the property. As Scott said, council, I believe at least 5 out of the 7 of you, reviewed the base provisions of this text back in November of 2024. Preliminarily accepted it, I would say, through the interim development agreement that was approved by council. But we've worked very hard with the Planning Commission over the last 2 months to refine that, and as Scott said, take into consideration not only Planning Commission comments, but also audience comments and some of council's comments with respect to this ordinance. I'm not going to go through that text again for all of the revisions, but I think Scott highlighted them with respect to making sure there's a mixed use of that property going forward. Make sure that the heights are not too oppressive against the public right-of-way. Your current mixed use permits development right up to the public right-of-way line. We've moved that back, and then we've stepped down the heights as you go out toward the lake and as the topography goes down toward the lake. And one of the major things, I think, is reducing the area now to what ALERG owns and not including property to the east or property to the south. Much of that property to the south is now owned by the city with respect to the regional water district. So most of you were at the Planning Commission meetings, I think, and heard my presentation of those changes. But what I'd really like to step into for just a moment is the schedule. We would hope tonight that at your regular meeting you at least put this ordinance on first reading, second reading in 2 weeks. I know you have a public hearing set for April 27th, and we will be here to present at that time, and we assume there'll be many more members of the public that will present their views that evening. Hopefully third reading, which would be around May 11th. And that means if it's passed that evening, it still doesn't go into effect until June 10th. And so we need this into effect before a vertical developer is going to commit to us on a letter of intent. going forward and a purchase or sale agreement for the property going forward to develop all or a part of that property. And the last thing on your agenda tonight from the Planning Commission is the rezoning of the property from industrial to the B3 commercial district. We do not oppose that rezoning. We agreed to it in the interim development agreement, and hopefully that will move through at the same pace as this lakefront mixed-use overlay district. And so we're available to answer any questions you may have this evening, and thank you very much for your time, as always.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to invite our legal counsel to come up and just speak to the legal aspects of this, if you have any further comments. And then after that, I'd like to have Ted Esborn also say a couple things.
Thank you. Thank you, members of council. Jordan Burns with Burns, Ochsner, and Greenberger, special counsel to the city. With me tonight is my partner, Majid Makhlouf, as well. As you know from our prior appearances before you, we have been engaged to work on behalf of the city in connection with the proposed rezoning of the property here. I'm going to do my best to avoid repeating some of the things that you just heard and really keep things straightforward and simple. The city and this council have a generational opportunity before you to put in place the zoning for a vital part of the city that is available for redevelopment. And the task before you is to determine whether this is the right zoning to put in place. As simple as that. Before council, if things advance the way we recommend that they do, will be the rezoning of the power plant property to B3 zoning, in large part to prevent its development for industrial purposes. The folks from ALC-TV are not here proposing that, but that is what the current zoning allows, and I don't think anybody in this room wants to see that that type of development take the place of the power plant. The other component is the adoption of the overlay district that you're familiar with and that the Planning Commission has recommended to this council be approved. As you've already heard and as you know from the attention that you've already given it, this is an overlay district that has been the product of a lot of work, a lot of good input from you, a lot of good input from Planning Commission, and a lot of good input from staff. And it does what an overlay district, a good overlay district provision in a zoning code ought to do. It sets some boundaries, some what we've all called guardrails before, on what can happen on the property in terms of the uses and in terms of things, the features of the development, like setbacks and height and those sorts of components of any development. And just as important, if not more important, it puts in place a procedure for consideration of any proposed development of the property. That procedure is one that this body is familiar with because it's the very same procedure that exists with respect to the existing mixed-use overlay chapter of the city's code that was recently, within the last few years, adopted and has been implemented. It's a rigorous process. It requires review by the Planning Commission with a recommendation to this City Council and a number of very specific review criteria on top of the criteria that exist within the proposed lakefront mixed-use overlay district chapter. But that procedure we think is of critical importance, and I want to be clear that it's also entirely separate from what you're being asked to propose. I know, or to consider. I know that there has been a lot of concern expressed by members of City Council, by members of the public about what the development is going to consist of, what it's going to look like, what the uses are going to be, what the heights of the buildings and the massing of the buildings, and all of those features and concerns that we don't know sitting here today what that's going to be. There's been concerns about the demands on existing public improvements and what additional public improvements would be required in order for any proposed development to proceed. And those are absolutely critical and necessary components of any development. But those are, by design, matters to be considered in connection with any development plan that is presented to the Planning Commission and then for your approval, rather than baking those into the zoning code. And the reason for that is simple. The zoning code isn't going to dictate those features. It's not going to dictate the street layout. It's not going to dictate the sidewalks and the sanitary sewer and storm sewer needs. All of those are going to be part and parcel of a development plan that's going to go through the development plan review process that the city has already established in connection with the existing mixed-use overlay chapter of the city's code. So it's not that that's being ignored. It's not that that's being sidestepped. It's not that the folks who are advocating for the approval of the lakefront mixed-use overlay district chapter are ignoring that. It's that is appropriately considered in connection with the next step, with the development plan review process. The important thing, I think, for this body and for council at its regular meetings and ultimately when it makes a decision here is to know that there is a process in place under the proposed zoning chapter for that to happen, and to be comfortable with that process, which we think and hope you are because it already exists in your code, and comfortable with those other guardrails, those other limitations on what can and cannot be developed within this overlay district, how the property can and cannot be used, the setbacks, the building heights, the massing, those features. We think that working collaboratively with ALC-TV, we have done a very good and thorough job of creating a zoning code chapter that will really take advantage of this generational opportunity for the city to put in place a chapter that will encourage the sort of development, the sort of use of the property that the residents of the city are going to be happy with. And it's for that reason that we'd like to see this move forward before council with the next step after a first reading being a public hearing and then ultimately a vote on the schedule that ALC-TV's lawyer has indicated.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Esper?
Sure. Thank you, Council President. I'm just going to get detailed about one thing that Jordan said. I want to talk about in the lakefront mixed-use overlay 12-1906, which says the applicant shall submit a plan of development and the procedure for review of the plan and the criteria for the plan shall follow the provisions of section 1218-03 of this code. So for the LMUO, we're using the review procedure from the MUO, which already exists. I want to talk about what that means. Each LMUO development plan will be reviewed for adherence to 10 criteria and will have 3 levels of review. There's Development Review Committee, which is the city's departments, which are looking at criteria as well as their own departmental requirements. Then there's Planning Commission, and then there's City Council. So there's those 3 levels. I think it's helpful. It's helpful for me to go back to the Matthews Hollow subdivision submitted last year. The review for LMUO plans will be almost exactly the same in terms of 3 levels. And with Matthews Hollow, you probably remember, I mean, they put in a lot of time with DRC and they changed their plan accordingly. They put in a lot of time with Planning Commission and they changed their plan accordingly. That plan got tabled at Planning Commission because the city said it's not there yet. And they reworked it, working with the city, and it got there, and it went to council. So I expect the same kind of scrutiny and back and forth, because like I said, it's if you look at the text of the code, it really is almost identical in terms of the review.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, anything further?
No, I think that's, unless there's anything else you gentlemen want to add, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you.
Questions?
Relative to this, I'm very interested in the public hearing, and it's set on April 27th here in these chambers, and I'm going to reserve any comments till after I hear what the public has to say about this. And if any council members have any comments or questions at this point, I'll open it up to council. Ms. Gentry.
Do we need any text in there to indicate that the property is not yet remediated to the level that we are approving?
I know that we have two big piles of gravel out there, and I don't know to what degree those are remediated or when they're going to be remediated.
Well, we don't have our environmentals complete, right? So is there any, I just want to
As far
know if
as
we're
I know,
opening
they're
ourselves
not.
up to any risk by approving the mixed-use overlay if we don't have that complete. And I don't know the answer, I'm just,
No,
Okay, name, please.
sorry,
You have
Najib
been up there.
Maplouf with Burns Ockner, outside counsel to the city on land use and zoning. We do not hear, because that's all regulated by the environmental regulations. All we're dealing with here is the zoning regulation, the zoning code.
so there's no implication.
All of that would
Okay.
be, if they're here for a building permit and there is no compliance with the environmental regulations, that'd be an issue. But we're simply just setting the zoning code in place.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you.
And then
Go ahead.
follow up. So, Mr. Hunt, you had mentioned that when it came to the rezoning, that we would have detailed plans in place to do the rezoning. So I'm confused now at this point, we don't have anything extra. So what were
We're
you
not
implying?
rezoning.
Hold on a
anything.
second, let her finish. Go ahead, will you
I'm
finish?
sorry.
We are rezoning as part of, is that not what item number 2 was?
Well, that's going to commercial zoning. That's up to the city. We're not going to be developing under B3, or we're not intending to. But still, there would need to be a site plan, a detailed site plan, even if there was a development plan under the B3 zoning, your commercial B3 zoning, which would go through the planning commission or the staff review, planning commission and council prior to any approval. It would happen under the B3. However, B3 does not permit the types of uses that we'd like to see on that property as the owner, and I think as the city also.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Is that,
Let me just-
is that
Quick clarification, if I may.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to clarify, there's 2 items on the agenda tonight, correct? There's the rezoning to B3, and then there's the adoption of the LMU district. The rezoning to B3 was a demand from the city to make sure
Got it.
that we're protected, that the industrial zoning doesn't remain in place. The property owner consented to it, so that's something that's there for the protection of the city to make sure that no development can happen under the industrial zoning. The adoption of the lakefront district is a text amendment, and for that to be, that's not rezoning the property. If there is a plan, that would come in with a plan. At that point, it would be, the map amendment, if you wish, would be coordinated with a plan in place at a later phase.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. And then I guess my last question was about Mr. Burns, your comments, and we were talking about the infrastructure. You had mentioned that's been a very big concern. So I guess, and maybe it's just because that will come at a later date. The biggest concern that the residents have is we have this income tax on the ballot that's coming up in May because we don't have the capital to pay for our roads. So to increase the amount of roads and the number of vehicles that are going to be required to use our roads and things, it's very concerning to the residents, my residents. I've gotten a lot of feedback from my residents that they're very concerned that we can't manage the roads that we have. And if we add all of this extra at the extra vehicles that are going to be required, we're very concerned that the city won't be able to handle them. And so I guess that's something that would be determined at the development timeframe. That's not at this timeframe. Can you help me understand? Because
Yeah, let me try and help.
okay,
The short answer is yes, that's when that will be determined. But the important component there is that just like any project, whether it's a residential project or a commercial project of the magnitude that we're all envisioning, it's the developer's responsibility to fund the improvements, not just that are necessary on site, but as a result of the impacts of their development off-site. Let's take an easy example that you've seen before in other developments, undoubtedly. The traffic impact of a development. Undoubtedly, a traffic impact study will be required in connection with a development plan that is submitted under the LMUO chapter if it's adopted. That traffic impact study will indicate what the impact of the traffic being generated as a result of the development will be. And it will include recommendations for improvements to be made off-site as a consequence of that.
so throughout the city?
Through an area of the city that's determined in collaboration with the city's engineering department to be the area that is going to be studied because it's going to be impacted as a result of the development. So that could be potentially a very large area.
Okay.
And then it would be the developer's responsibility to comply with the requirements of that traffic impact study, which itself would be subject to review by the city's engineering department and possibly a traffic consultant engaged by the city to determine which of those improvements and possibly other improvements are necessary as a consequence of that impact, and that would be the developer's responsibility. And that's true, again, for a residential development in the city, or a small subdivision, or a development of this magnitude. And we'd certainly expect that here the impacts would be more significant, more substantial, and the impacts on things like, again, not just roads, but sewer systems and other improvements beyond the boundaries of the property could be substantial, and ultimately that is going to be the developer's responsibility to pay for. Now, I don't want to make it sound as simple as all that, because you all know you've been part of discussions where there's where the subject of tax increment financing has come up, and it's anticipated that tax increment financing will fund some of the improvements on site, and that's a source of funding. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the responsibility for funding those improvements is going to be on the developer. And it's possible that some of the funding may also involve ongoing responsibilities for maintenance or impacts of the development. Again, the important thing is that the structure is in place to allow for that. But the sorts of concerns that you're raising, which of course are critical concerns, are something that is considered in connection with the development plan review process.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Burns. Anything further, Ms. Gentry?
No, I was just going to comment that the concern that I have is $15 million. I'm a lot smarter than I was 2 years ago. $15 million on roads does not go far. So for the infrastructure, I think that was all that was slated. So that's why I'm very concerned about what we have going on.
Thank you. Mr. Shamir, you were next.
I think Mr. Costs.
Well, your hand was up first.
Oh, may I use the
Sure.
overhead?
But, no, not yet. Go ahead. So you all hooked in? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You know, this development, I think, is critical to our community. How it's done is also critical. We, as a city, have stepped into developments in the past. I think Matthew Hollow was just mentioned by Mr. Esborn, but magnitude of the project is quite different. I'm going to go back to what was done by the city through a contract. It was an economic resiliency program. The first two items, this is from the report, is infrastructure and land use to better understand and plan around it, and economic value. Those two items were supposed to be evaluated as a part of this program. When I went to Planning Commission, I specifically asked about those two items because infrastructure is not something that you plan later. 1,200 residential units could mean 2,400 potential vehicles. When you have a TIF program of $60 million, where $30 million is going to go to purchase of the land by the city and the building of the park, not the beach, just the park. That leaves $30 million left in the TIF bucket. Out of that $30 million, we will be paying roughly about $1.5 million to our consultants and experts. So that will leave us with somewhere maybe about $28.5 million. And if we don't spend any further funds. So what does that mean? That means that out of that $28.5 million, which will be then allocated to whatever developer that may come in and require, that is sewer, that is water, that is traffic studies, but most importantly, what you've got is who is going to take the flow of 2,400 potential vehicles out of the city, and what way are we going to take them out? Fundamentally, we haven't looked at the infrastructure. Now, I went through and I've got a number of points. I'm going to focus on the first two and first two only, because we've got another several cycle which I will be dissecting this even further. We have no infrastructure plan and no economic framework. We don't have a model, but at the end of the day, I can tell you that Chara has an economic model. And during the Planning Commission, when it came down to the number of units per acre, they actually went there and sat down in the back of the room and said, okay, can we do this and can we do that? And that's perfect. That's exactly how it's supposed to be done. They're doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. They're planning, they know their economics, they know what they need to make money, and then they know what the sweet spot, so the cream on top, how much more can they take off the top? The city, on the other hand, is going into this blindly. So we have no infrastructure plan, we have no economic framework. So this thing was taken to the Planning Commission. Okay, 1219 had been available for years, a year and a half or more. But this was brought to Planning Commission the first of this year. It was presented. So I attended the last two Planning Commissions, and I voiced my concern. I asked about the economics. Do you understand what the economics of this project is? What does it mean for the city? How much will the city have to invest into infrastructure? How much revenue will be generated? Tax revenues from the property and tax revenues from employees that will offset the requirements for maintenance of roads, building and expansion of roads. You know, pretty pictures and pretty words and pretty concepts are great, but you need to be able to answer the questions. The city administration to date has not been able to answer the question. I've asked these same questions now for 2 years. Unfortunately, that doesn't show well. So the way that the top is, if I may, I'm going to shut off the light so that it comes across. But what you have is the proper way of doing this thing is you plan, then you look at infrastructure and economics. The way that we're doing is we're looking at zoning, and I'm sorry, it looks like it's not gonna come out. The next version will have to be done differently. We're doing zoning first, then we're doing plan, infrastructure, and economics. Zoning, plan, infrastructure, economics is not what we need. We need to understand what the economics of this project is, what is the infrastructure requirements. So the question was brought up. Is there a requirement for infrastructure plan? At the Planning Commission, one of the gentlemen, I'm not sure who it was, said, well, there is no mention of infrastructure. Well, within the economic resiliency plan, it's stipulated you need to take a look at infrastructure plans. That is the cornerstone of what you're going to do. And we also have a timeline that has been clearly laid out. So this was completed sometimes in July, August. It was in the hands of everyone. When I asked the question, do we have an infrastructure plan? Well, we can do that later. No, you can't do that later. Because at the end of the day, the residents will turn around and have to pay the bill for whatever we leave on the table that is the cream on top for who buys that land, who sells that land. So we, as a city, had a roadmap. We haven't taken any action on this roadmap. You know, I may be wrong, but I can tell you, every economist that I speak with, they will tell you that this framework is what you need. It's not something that is, oh, well, we'll do it later. And, well, you know, when this thing goes out and somebody buys it, they're going to pay for that additional infrastructure. They're going to come in, they're going to look at that $28.5 million bucket of money. Roads, infrastructure. So they will focus on the infrastructure in the surrounding vicinity. Who's going to pay for the expansion of Lake Road, if that's a requirement? Who's going to pay for the expansion of Moore Road? Remember, we're talking about 1,200 units. We're not talking about 10. We're not talking about 120. We're talking about 1,200 units. Where's the parking for 1,200 units? Are they going to go under? How far are they going to go up? So, you know, we talk about pretty pictures and we talk about fundamentals of what can be, but we need to look at the reality of what we don't understand. What we don't understand is, again, this was outlined in the 2019 comprehensive land use. Get your infrastructure and understand it. Make sure that your infrastructure component is well understood. So since 2019, 7 years has gone, we still don't understand what our infrastructure requirement is. We don't have a plan of how economic growth has to be done. We don't. So we don't know. What do we want to do? We know that we want to have 1,200 units potentially out there. We don't know how the people will have to come in and go out. Do we need to look at eminent domain to widen roads? So these are all questions that have to be asked. And when they tell you, when they fundamentally tell you that, well, this is something that will happen down the road, it's not quite that simple. So when we take the second item of changing from industrial over, that's a great thing. But what is the cost of that change? How much will it cost to go from there to the 1,200 units? What is the infrastructure cost? It may be nominal. Put it down, put the numbers, allow the city, allow the people that are voting on this to have clarity so that I can answer to my constituents correctly that this is a good project. So these are all outlined in the economic resiliency plan. We have taken 0 step to deal with them. And The only thing that I'm concerned with this project at this moment is the infrastructure plan and the economic model, because without it, we're flying blind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shamir. Anyone else have any comments? All right. Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Thank you. And I thank Mr. Shamir for bringing up questions that I know he's not the only one that has asked them. And I would like to turn back to our consultants to see if you could give us some of those answers, because this isn't your first project. The three attorneys that are in the room they're all from Ohio, they're all from the Cleveland area. They have all gone from the type of projects that we are working on right now, and they have actually worked through to the point where they have a final end. Whether it's in Medina or whether it's in other communities, can you share the experience to help the rest of council understand that timeline? Thank you.
Mrs. Fenderbosh, what exactly are you asking
What
them
I'm
to
asking
respond to?
is, okay, what I'm asking is if our consultants could come up, and Mr. Shamir has stated that there has not been a study that has been done for our infrastructure. I believe that it was answered earlier, but if it could be restated as to when that takes place and who pays for it, and put us into that kind of a perspective, because we haven't even discussed the community benefit agreements that can take place by the different developers that come in.
Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. The question that you're dealing with is the chicken or the egg, what comes first? And you're never going to get the developer willing to commit to a real plan, to purchase property, without having the protection of the zoning being in place. So it is almost always that you start with the zoning, because that's your overall planning concept. That's what you're trying to do. Critically, though, in this structure that we have, and I think it was critical that Mr. Hunt made that point very clear, that you're not rezoning the property to the overlay district. All we're doing is we're putting an overlay district availability in our zoning code. And that availability will not be implemented, will not be placed on that property until there is a development plan in place where all those questions will be applied. So we're not rezoning. The question that often happens is you go into a community, you zone something for whatever you zone it for, and the developer comes with a plan and wants to develop it, and the city says it needs infrastructure, and the developer would say, no, but the property is zoned this way. I have a constitutional right to develop my property in accordance with the zoning. And if it requires certain infrastructure, it's on you to make sure that it's in place. If you don't have sewer capacity, that's not my problem. I have a right to develop in accordance with the zoning. That property is not zoned for that LMU district. When the developer is coming to the city, they're asking to apply that LMU district to that property. And it's at that point, the city, it's still a legislative function at that point. It's not an administrative function that the city has to do certain things. The city can look to the viability of the plan. The city can look to the development and everything that happens with that plan. It is always the case, though, as Jordan said, that a developer, when they come for a development, is responsible for the consequences, for the impact of their development. And let's take traffic. A traffic impact study doesn't just look at the site. It looks to the impact, right? They determine the impacted area. And that could go, I've had it go outside of jurisdictions at times. It's not necessary. It may not remain just in Avon Lake. It may go outside of Avon Lake, depending on where the traffic impact study determines the impact is. In other developments, we've had it go on freeways, in terms of the impact. You have to do the study going from this freeway in. So that is where the traffic impact study would come in, would determine what kinds of improvements would have to happen, because they're caused You can't require the developer to put you in a better place than you would have otherwise been without the development. But however, you can make them bear the cost of the impact of their development. So to the extent that the developer is causing an impact, that is the developer's responsibility. Now, the criticism that we've heard has always been with the TIF, with the idea that we're providing this incentive to a developer and there is this $60 million bucket that's available for public infrastructure, and we're eating 30 million of that for purposes of the public park. A couple of points. I remember at one of the previous meetings when Councilman Shamir and Mr. Phillips had raised the issue that you force them to do the park by the zoning, use the zoning as the incentive to make sure that a park is in place. Again, the questions as to the constitutionality of all of that aside for a second, the legislation that you have in front of you today does precisely that. It does precisely what Mr. Shamir and what Mr. Phillips had asked for, which is it requires a public park in that LMU district. It doesn't provide how that public park exists. It doesn't say that the city has to buy it through a TIF or through any mechanism. It just requires that if you want to take advantage of the LMU district, there has to be a public park of 20 acres. That's all the legislation that is currently in front of council. There's nothing in front of council today about the city buying any property. Now, when the TIF comes in place, and that is a very prolonged process that involves negotiations with the school district, that will involve modeling, that will involve, all of that will have to be put in front of council. Those questions would have to be answered. They have to prove to the city that when they're asking you to do that TIF, that the repercussions of what that TIF means, and the council will have to consider all of that and will make that decision in place. And there are a whole slew of other options even available for the in rural communities, they do things called RUMAs, road use and maintenance agreements, that they do with developers for long-term maintenance after the development is in place. You know, there are a whole panoply of options that are available at that time for all those discussions. But all what's in front of council today is the zoning, and I respectfully submit that you always start with the zoning. We could have a development, we could have an economic model in place. Soviet planning and infrastructure, that's how it used to be. You decide what it is, and we live in a place where the marketplace dictates how that happens. We can't force a development, we can't force a developer to come here and say, this is how it has to be. We provide the roadmap, we provide the availability for that development through the zoning, and then the developer would come to us with their plan, and at that point, that is when it's discussed, it's addressed, the viability, all those questions would be raised.
Thank you.
Sure. I would like to.
Not yet. Ms. Goodwin?
Thank you. So I guess this is, and pardon my ignorance on this too, I'm still learning all the history, but the kind of the chicken or the egg question. So we have the zoning in front of us. I'm supportive of the overlook. I understand that piece of it. But then at that point, because we don't know where the funding is coming from, because we don't have any sort of plan, any sort of structure, any sort of roadmap, any sort of anything, we kind of, then we've given up kind of the one thing I feel like we have, but, to make sure it becomes the property, what we all want to see. And so I guess I think I need some more clarity on if this is now going to be, once the zoning goes through, then is this going to be sold as, well, they approved the zoning, so it's going to be, it's going to be done through a TIF, it's going to be, how do we know that once that goes through, that the response is not just, oh, we're this is how it has to happen?
Understood. A couple of points. all the legislation that is in front of council today is two pieces of legislation. One is the rezoning from the industrial to the B3, which was a request of the city for the protection. And then the other one is a text amendment to the code providing for an overlay district. It does not provide for how that will be funded. It does not provide for it. There is nothing whatsoever in front of council today that requires a TIF, that says anything as to how the financing of any project would be happening. Quite frankly, part of the reason why you do this, and think of the difficulty that you deal with in a situation like this, we're dealing with a land developer. We're not dealing with a vertical developer. So we don't even have the development in front of us that we can deal with. What we're doing in place is we're putting the parameters of a development and some of the assurance in the plan that can give these guys the ability to go then sell that project to the vertical developer who would come in with the plans and who would come in with, and that developer would not be committing to them without the zoning being in place. So we have to put the zoning in place so that they could sell, enter into contract with the vertical developer. And again, even when we say 1,200 units, that's a maximum number that's under the zoning code, right? That's not a commitment to build 1,200 units or whatever it is. The vertical developer is going to come in with their plans, with their capacity, with how much the market can absorb, and they will come to us with the plan, and that will be assessed at that point. All that's in, that's not requiring any certain size. It's putting limits on what can be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could add to that just a little bit.
No, not yet. We're gonna have some more comments from council. Did you have another question?
I have a follow-up.
Okay,
That's okay.
go ahead.
Because at the planning commission meeting, it was stated that 1,200 units, that was the number for the TIF. Like that was the number that was given to offset the funding.
Yeah, again, I think we're talking about two different functions. The 1,200 units that are referenced in the zoning code are the maximum number of residential units that the zoning would allow. In connection with tax increment financing, it may be that a model of the money that would be generated from the development is going to include the development, the construction of 1,200 units to support the money that would be generated from that. That's a different issue for consideration at a different time, but I don't want to lose sight of the fundamental question that you ask, because it's come up a few times from a few council members, and it really gets back to the same question, which is, if we approve the zoning, are we as a city committed to making improvements to allow for the development of the property in accordance with the zoning? And I give short answers and then really long answers. The short answer is no. Like Majid and I have both explained, the process that this zoning code chapter would have put in place, and the process, going back to Councilperson Fenderbosch's question earlier, how does this work in other communities? It's really the same answer. When a development plan comes before the city, through that review process that's part of the chapter here, among the features that are evaluated are, what are the infrastructure needs in order to develop this property? It's not as simple as a picture, a rendering of a plan saying this looks great, we love it, it's approved. Your staff and the bodies that review it do something far more rigorous than that. You look at what are the streets improvements that are needed in order to support this? What are the sewer improvements that are needed? And ultimately, it's not on the city to provide those. It's on the developer to construct those. It's on the developer to fund those. Again, where that funding comes from can be a whole array of features. But it's on the developer, and that's what what will be part of that process. And that's true for every development. The developer has to come forward with a plan that shows not only what they want to do, but all of those improvements that are necessary. They get evaluated, and then it's up to them to improve it. And it starts with, again, just sort of playing the development process on. It goes from a development plan to final preliminary development plan, to a final development plan, to actual construction plans that include the plans for all of those improvements that are necessary, which are the developer's responsibility.
Thank you. Anything further? Mr. Shamir?
I think Ms. Gentry was before me, or do you want, I'll go? Go ahead. I mean,
We only got a couple more minutes on this. We do have a public hearing. I'll remind everybody that it's April 27th here at 7 o'clock. We'll be able to entertain a lot more questions from the audience. That's what the public hearing is for. There'll be a lot more information provided, I think, at that time. But we'll continue on with this briefly. Go ahead, Mr. Shamir.
Okay.
Mr. Shamir, can I clarify one thing? Because I
Please.
think it's causing a lot of turmoil here. Just, the zoning change is for a B3, which is not it's not mixed use. So this change is an incremental change for the zoning. And I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't catch that, and it was Mr. Hunt who.
And I think that their problem with the B3 zoning is it doesn't give them enough housing units. But it does address a lot of the other concerns that they have with regard to allowing business and the like there. But, but it's not, it's 16, I think it's 16 units per acre in a B3. But go ahead, Ms. Gentry.
So I did have one other comment, and I think that a lot of Mr. Shamir's concerns about the lack of a development plan and infrastructure plan is if the city does not get those plans in place, what after this project is left in the city to do? We might as well not even do one because this is the most fundamental project that the city will be doing. So I think we need to move forward on that project.
Thank you. Mr. Shamir.
Well, I'd like to open, and Mr. Maloof made a comment about Soviet-era planning. Planning, economics, are effectively what was lacking in the Soviet system, and I have to beg to differ. That is where their failure came. They did not plan. They went through, expenditures were done based on concepts that did not realize what the economic impacts were. And I'm going to tell you a very fundamental thing. They drilled wells in Kazakhstan. They didn't have pipes to take it to a processing facility. So there were lakes of oil that sat there. This is not where we want to be. We don't want to be in a Soviet era planning or lack of planning. Understanding what we have is critical. Infrastructure, understanding what infrastructure we have and what we need is critical. I live in this community, and I understand you guys are paid consultants, but in the same token, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lawyers in this room. 8 lawyers. And I would like to ask Mr. Phillips, who has worked along Mr. Maloof and against them, to come and give me his perspective on what has just been said, because all I hear is a one-sided argument. And a one-sided argument is I've got paid consultants that all are looking to follow the line of the administration who hasn't shifted, who hasn't even bothered to come in and say, we will give you an infrastructure plan. Mr. Ochner, Burns. So you made a mention that the staff will review and deal with these issues as they come. The problem is we have had plans that should have been developed for years. So the lack of human resources and the lack of funding today is bad enough. And as we go down this path, that becomes even greater. So we get to fund through a payback mechanism certain components where we could have also looked at the infrastructure component, to understand what infrastructure requirements we will have is not that big of a deal. To understand the economics, we could have sat down across the table from Chara because they've done their economics. So when you tell me that that's something that's done down the road, no, 1,200 units ties back into what economics have been run by Chara and the development group, the land development group. It's not some number that they just took out. So when you say, well, 1,200, that 1,200 is based on a number that has been decided based on running economics, not some number that they just kind of pulled out of the air. So I would like either here or in the future, I'm going to utilize Mr. Phillips to understand, because he has worked with these folks and represented against these folks. And this is something that I would like to see.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips will have an opportunity to talk at the beginning of our council meeting, and he'll also have he'll be able to talk at the public hearings on this, so.
Can I ask a question there?
Yes.
So what if I ask him as my consultant? I want to have a consultant that is third party. What do I do to bring another expert in that is not singing off the same sheet of music contracted by the city and through other mechanisms funded by Chara through a reimbursement agreement?
Well, we'll figure that one
Thank
out
you.
for you. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'm ready to end this discussion. Ms. Fenderbosch.
Thank you. I hear from my colleague, Ms. Gentry, a topic that I'm not sure there was complete understanding. There might still be some confusion. And I just want to state, and I'm basing this on the many, many years I served on Planning Commission. And if I'm wrong, I'm calling on my consultants to correct me, please, gents. So this is what is before us. We have going from an industrial to a B3. An MOU, an overlay, is not a zoning. It is an option that the vertical developer can come in and say, hey, under the MOU, I would like to build and they will give it to us. Am I saying it correctly, gentlemen? If I could.
Would you like me to call on them?
Yes, if you would, please, sir. Thanks.
Come on up.
There's the underlying zoning, and then there's the overlay district. The underlying zoning is what the zoning of the property is, what you have the right to develop the property under. The overlay district is an option that is available for somebody to come request the city to apply it to that property. And then that's where they have to have an actual development plan in place and convince the city of the viability of that development to apply that overlay district to it. But it's not something that a developer has any right to develop as a matter of right under.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything further? Mayor, anything further before we move on?
I think we're going to have plenty of opportunities to discuss this further.
That's what I said. All right. Thank you. As a reminder, there will be a public hearing on this matter on April 27th of this month here in this council chambers. All right. Moving on, we got the standing committees of council. Building and Utilities Committee, Ms. Gentry.
Yes, the council member, Mr. Reynolds and Shamir are both here, so we have quorum. I call the meeting to order. First topic is approval of the minutes for March 2nd. Were there any concerns, changes required? Seeing none, we'll pass as written. The next topic of unfinished business was to review this statement of work for the coal pile storm sewer connection lessons learned. So as we just got the draft before the meeting, I haven't had a chance to review it. Mr. Liskovic, can you give us a synopsis and we'll review it?
There you go. Sure. So essentially, what I put together was basically what I felt were areas that were maybe missteps or potentially things that weren't addressed throughout the process of the connection being made, and essentially put all that together in a way that can be then distributed to the consultant for review. As was discussed prior, everybody, it was the will that wanted everybody to have a chance to take a look at it before we went out. So thus, I've got it in front of everybody this evening.
I would like to suggest that we take a week to review this document and come back to the CCM next week with any comments on the document, since we haven't had a chance to review it. Does anyone have any concerns with that? I don't think it's a motion because it's just going to CCM, is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll make sure to put it on the agenda for the CCM,
Okay.
which is next week.
All right, so the next order of business is the City Hall update. Do you want to give us an update on that, Mr. Liskovic?
So I think based on our discussion, since it was kind of covered in public services, there was some requested information, or information that was requested about the work that was done. So I put that all together and presented it or supplied it to that committee. But essentially, it was, from start to finish, discovering of an issue potentially of mold, having industrial hygienists come in, take a look at it, do some sampling on it. They had determined essentially, that while it didn't necessarily present a significant health hazard, it was still something the city wanted to move forward through to clean and go through the space, clean it up, address some of the issues down there. And we worked with two vendors, one for doing the cleaning work, and then obviously the hygienist to inspect it and kind of monitor some of it, or monitor it too. So we did have a point where the cleaning, or the company that we contracted with, didn't fully clean everything. We made them come back per the hygienist's recommendation until we got a clean bill of health. With that, and then we put together, and then we're working on putting it together. We still have left on the agenda, there is some piping which initially attributed to some of the formation areas that does need to be replaced. We have not reinstalled any ceiling tiles, but those are currently active under the boiler system. So we're waiting for that seasonal shift where we can shut the whole system down, remove and replace any areas like that. And then some of the insulation that needs to be restored to that piping also.
Do we know when we think that work will be complete?
I hate to say it, but only Mother Nature's going to be able to tell us that. I know we've got some cold evenings coming up over this coming weekend where we're going to dip down into mid 30s. So they're going to need a boiler coming up next week and stuff like that. I will say though, right now with it in heating mode, we're not seeing any evidence. All the metals have expanded, and we are not seeing any leaks being attributed to that. So we're waiting to be able to make that transition, cool the system off, see what happens after the metals contract, and if anything pops up, so we can guide those final steps.
Okay. So hopefully by the end of the summer, we can have this closed out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sooner.
Okay.
Madam Chairwoman?
Vanderbilt.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Liskovic. Mr. Liskovic, all of the rooms, are they all interconnected through HVAC, or are there segments that you can segment them off? And the reason I'm asking is if there was mold in the basement circulating and then the air filters are changed down there, are they affecting what's up here and in other areas?
So in the basement space, we actually had no active HVAC component. There was no supply air. There was no return air down there. So it other than people moving through the space, there was no. This space here, we have active supply and return runs here that would pick up and redistribute it, but we did benefit in that space of being a little bit more contained.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on this topic? If not, we'll move on to the new business. There's House Bill 361 that is still in committee down in Columbus, but it has a dramatic impact on the timelines for inspections and such. So I wanted to bring it up. Somebody else had mentioned it. We thought we'd cover it in building and utilities. So it covers quite a bit, but my biggest concern was the reduction of the notice required goes from 250 feet to 150 feet is one concern that I had. Let's see, there's quite a bit. So the timelines is what really changed. We reduced the timelines from to 14 days, from 30 days for reviewing the plans and building codes. So Mayor, I know I sent this to you and Tom late, but I was hoping that you guys can take a look at these and see what impact these would have so that we can give the council members, or sorry, representatives, feedback on these items. Because
Sure. So these are ongoing. I also sent it to Ted Esborn, our Community Development Director, because it does have a land use component. So he's aware as well. And then we'll have law involved in taking a look at it.
Okay. So, Mr. Shamir, I believe you had questions on this earlier. It's this.
Just go through the process. I did.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll bring this topic up for review at the next Building and Utilities meeting. And then the next, that was the end of the agenda items, but I did want to mention that we had discussed earlier, when we passed the short-term rental, we had talked about doing long-term rental inspection. And so I wanted to bring that up at the next council meeting to start those discussions as well. And I think the next order of business would be public input. Anybody choose to come up?
Gerald Phillips, Avon Lake resident for 20 years. Our infamous topic, illegal connection. We're paying a consultant to do what we shouldn't have had a consultant do. You know, the players are, and the problem was, the stormwater manager, the engineer, and the public works director. Those are the parties who are supposed to be involved in the connection and going through the process, okay, and approving it. Well, that didn't work. So it was a procedural issue. And it got messed up because the former mayor, Mr. Zilka, decided he was going to make that decision. And then he contacted Mr. Gaydar. No, he contacted Mr. Monroe, who shouldn't have been involved in the process. And then Mr. Monroe contacted Mr. Gaydar, okay? You know, that's the problem. You can hire a consultant, and is he a lawyer? Is he going to tell you how to redraft the code? Really? Why do we have a law director? This problem could have been solved without hiring Osborne and going through it. I could have gave you an answer in an hour and a half, if you asked me. So, you know, we're talking about income tax and why we need it. We just wasted money on Mr. Osborne. And we're sending him what we think wasn't done. Well, it's pretty easy, okay? I don't think Mr. Likovic is an attorney. I don't think he can analyze the code and give Mr. Osborne the correct steps and what he needs to look at. Plus, Mr. Osborne's not an attorney. How is he going to advise us how to redraft our codified ordinances or our stormwater regulations? This is stupidity. You know, Mr. Smith, you're a lawyer, okay? Mr. Osborne and that firm can't do it. You know that. Why are we wasting time? We have meetings with the Building and Utilities Commission. This has been gone for 2 years. We still don't have an approved connection. We had a lot of rain recently, and that Colear Pond was quite high. And that water probably was going into the lake. And as we sit here today, we have no understanding of what the quality of that water, because we never did a two-phase study for that pond. Every subdivision, when it gets approved, they determine a capacity to handle a 100-year flood plus one freeboard. And they also determine the quality of the discharge. We did the capacity, we never did the quality of the discharge. So as we sit here today, we could be putting pollutants in Lake Erie. Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's your meeting.
Yeah, I was like raising my hand. Mr. Liskovic, the study that Osborne did, could you explain what that study was? What we're discussing tonight is not with Osborne. Can you explain what
Sure.
Osborne did for us last year?
So that component was to review the hydraulics of and capacity of the pond. What we're looking at next would be where the faults were in the process that got the connection done. And the firm that we're looking at using for that would be Partners Environmental.
Mr. Shamir, sorry.
So I'd just like to clarify a few things. The discussion of the legal connection and the window that we're looking at is May, June of 23 until December timeframe of 23. So that period, the discharge took place. There was not a risk assessment done. There was no understanding of what sediments was laying atop the coal yard area. And it was during a time when there was construction activity going on. And also at the same time, there was an elevated mercury exceedance at the discharge of Pond 002. So it was a culmination of a lot of things. We never saw the root cause analysis of that exceedance. Chara or ALERG told us that it was operational, but we never saw the actual root cause. So fundamentally what happened is there was a bypass that took place and discharge of what surface runoff there went into Powdermaker Creek. Since then, there has been a risk assessment that was conducted by Verdantis, and what runs off of that facility based on the risk assessment that was conducted is suitable for discharge into Lake Erie. So that is, I just want that clarified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shamir. Any questions on that? Okay. Seeing none, we will. I'm sorry.
Go
I'm
ahead.
ignoring you. It was not intentional, Mr. Zimmerman.
William Zimmerman, beautiful Avon Lake. So I'd like to talk about the Clearwater real quick, because somehow it's being rejuvenated. I've recently received information about McManahan, who did the presentations in front of all of us, and he's continued to work even though I thought we killed it here in Avon Lake. He's now made $467,000 on this project, still trying to sell it. I have documents from Lorco's executive director, who's been copying off to Armbruster, Perkins, and the Mannings, that they've never been contacted about the project. And they're supposed to be one of the three parties to be a part of it. And then my last statement about it will be the fact that Mr. Monroe, who pushed the idea for the board over at Avon Lake Regional Water, is now, and I don't know yet how long, because I haven't had the meeting with the person yet, is a member of the Lorain County, I said that wrong, one Lorain County, which I believe causes a conflict of interest. because they're trying to work at the benefit of trying to make some of these projects happen. So now he's on one of those steering committees, as well as coming before Avon Lake Regional Water. This is a problem. You shouldn't be involved like that. And that still doesn't bring up the problems that I'm having getting public records from him. 3 weeks now. They're supposed to be readily available, easily obtained. This is the state law. Don't understand why things work like that. It's amazing to me. And I still think, as Mr. Gerald Phillips said, the old mayor was involved in this connection point. I believe this was a criminal act. He went outside of his boundaries, decided to do something on his own to agree to move it forward. That's why Mr. Gaydar is retired, resigned, rehired, retired, resigned. If you look at the employee file there, you'll see all of the things that were going on in relationship with this event. City is way too corrupt.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I move to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Gentry. Next on the agenda is the Finance Committee meeting with Jeff Smith as chair, which is me. I am here, Mrs. Fenderbosh is here, and so is Mrs. Goodwin. Call the meeting to order. The first item is the approval of the minutes of March 2nd, 2026. Any additions, deletions, or comments regarding those minutes? Seeing none, the minutes will be approved as submitted. First on the agenda is the income tax collections. And as I look those over, it looks like we're down 4.579% based on the initial April RETA tax, which puts us down in income tax collections in the amount of $275,615.32. Ms. Crossy, our finance director, any comments on that?
Yes, the only comment I would make is that it is near tax due date time for these collections, so that could be just timing of when we'll be receiving personal income tax returns as well as net profits returns. So we'll probably see some more movement in May.
Okay, well, I hope you're right about that.
Yes.
Any questions from the committee on that? All right, seeing none, we're on to the February fund report. Ms. Crossy.
Thank you, Council President. The only thing I would like to point out about this report so far, we're on target with things. There are a number of funds that appear to be in the negative, but we will be making our first quarter transfers as of March. So the next report will be streamlined a little more. And also in March, we receive the property taxes. So we'll see general fund numbers look a little bit healthier.
Okay, anyone from the committee have any questions outside the committee? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to the self-funding employee health insurance. This is a very interesting item that I know that you've been working on in terms of having our medical insurance for the City of Avon Lake employees go to a self-funded policy where the city would self-fund it. If you could you give us a little bit of direction on what you see in terms of if we're able to do this, the benefits, particularly financially? I don't think that there would be any change in the healthcare coverages, but how it would help us financially.
Thank you. Yes, you are correct that we will not be changing the face of the health insurance policy that would be offered to employees. This would be a background change in how it is funded. And we have met with a number of insurance providers, and we are and have received quotes, and we are actually receiving another quote next Wednesday that we are hoping to entertain and see how that will affect our budget
And
for next year.
approximately how much are you thinking we're gonna save?
So we have seen various quotes depending on what is chosen within the plans of $300,000 to $400,000 a year.
And does that include any stopgap insurance that we have to have? Stopgap
Yes.
insurance is where a self-funded claim exceeds a certain amount of money. Then we move to a secondary insurance, which they call a stopgap, which then kicks in, so that we're not overfunding something. Usually they're around $125,000. That's just my guess.
Yes.
And,
That's correct. And that also affects the price of the policy that would be chosen.
And that's included in the 400,000 or so savings. that
Yes.
you- Well, thank you very much for that. Hopefully we can see some legislation or some movement toward that officially here
Yes.
coming up in the near future. Anyone from the committee have any questions? Yes, Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Thank you so much for looking at this option. I really appreciate it. My question is there any downside that we should be aware of? Since we lost our insurance expert on console, I'm asking you.
Yes, right. Well, there is additional risk if we go to a self-funded policy, but we are looking at pools with that stopgap in place as, minimum criteria. And also perhaps a step towards self-funding, not fully self-funded for the first year. So we're looking at a number of options, so.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry, Mrs. Goodwin, any questions on it? Okay, yes, Mr. Shamir.
Just as a follow-up to the previous question, what would be our exposure to self-funding? What would be our financial fiscal exposure on an annual basis?
So that will depend on the actual policy that is chosen, what risk exposure we would take on affects the cost of the insurance. So that's one of the things that we are weighing. So I can't give you a clear answer on that, but surely it would be presented to council as one of the criteria that we're looking at.
I mean, from my past experiences, the exposure comes when you have more than 5 or so people having serious health problems that we have to pay for the health insurance.
Exactly. And the reason I'm asking is, what is our mitigation measure for that risk? And is there? So that's something that I would like to see.
Again, based on my prior experience, the best mitigation that we have for that is to try our best to make sure that folks that work for the city see their regular primary care physicians on a regular basis, take the medications that they need, whether it's blood pressure or I call them stomach pills, but stomach pills, for acid reflux, take cholesterol medications, and just stay healthy and go to the doctor. And there are ways when you go into the self-funded area that we can have health fairs or the like to try and encourage folks to stay healthy. That's the best thing to prevent it, is to stay healthy and see the doctor so that they can diagnose problems ahead of time rather than after it's already too late. So that's where the risk is, and that's the best way, as I understand it, and I would say to try and
But
keep our
managed
risk.
pools, I mean, if there are multiple pools, and I'm not sure exactly how it works the state side, but typically in self-insurance, you have managed pools and larger pools, smaller pools. So what I'd like to understand is, how are we selecting the approach and the system, and what it's based on? That's somewhere, as that goes along, I'd like to get it earlier rather than later.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
and
I would-
that's one thing.
And I would say that those pools pick us more than
Yeah.
we pick the pools.
And actually, our rating is very good, knock on wood. And that's one of the things that, they obtain our current records to look at that kind of rating. So, yes.
Okay, I think it's a wise move for us to do, and, cooperation obviously is important as well. All right, any more questions on that? All right, we look forward to hearing more on that. Next, I had asked for the CRS to be put on, just to kind of make council aware that we do give CRS some money along the way during the years, just to be on the lookout that that probably is going to be coming up here in the future for our consideration. Any questions on that from the committee? All right, next is the Walker Road Phase 6 and Electric Boulevard Bridge bonds. Ms. Crossy.
Thank you, Council President. So I was able to distribute this evening. Our advisor provided us with some documentation about two different types of bonds that we could have council consider. So we are looking at a bond issue of approximately $1.6 million to help fund Walker Road Phase 6 that is not being covered by OPWC funds of about $0.6 million. And the Electric Boulevard Bridge, other pieces of that project is being funded by OWDA loans, but we are looking at about $1 million that is needed for private funding for the bridge. And we did discuss this at budget time, that we would be going out for these bonds. And we're hoping that the timing of this would be such that everything would go through council with 3 readings and we would have this funding in place by the middle of June. So that's what we're shooting for. And I just wanted to real quickly point out this document that I distributed before the meetings. So the two different types of bonds would be a direct placement, which typically has a little higher interest rate, but less issuance costs than a public placement. And the other caveat is that for a private or a direct placement, that the maximum number of years that we could go on the bonds would be 15 years. So it has a little higher principal and interest payments due to the shorter term and a little higher interest rate versus a 20-year public sale, which has a slightly lower interest cost, but the payments are spread out over 20 years. But you can see on the first page of the document, by going with a 15-year direct placement, we would see savings of a little over $300,000 over the term of the bonds. So we're considering both those options, and I'll have more information for you at the next meeting.
Thank you. When are you anticipating that we're going to see legislation on this?
So depending on what is, how these two different placements are discussed, we hope to have something in front of council by next meeting.
2 weeks from tonight?
Yes,
right.
An initial from Attorney Sharp.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Crossy, is the cost of working with a consultant, do you have a cost for us of what that would cost for them to be able to go out for the bond?
Yes, for Mr. Sharp and Mr. Cicina. Yes, that's included in this issue. So, and it's approximately $50,000, which is about what we paid for the fire trucks as well.
So if I could continue, it doesn't make any difference if it's the 15-year direct or the 20-year public sale, correct? It's $50,000 regardless?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, that's not correct. 15-year direct placement would be $50,000. For the 20-year public sale, that involves going through Moody's to get rated again, and that would be an additional $40,000.
$90,000.
In costs, just to get the issue.
Thank you. Anything further from any other council members on this? Thank you. We get that legislation to us as soon as possible so council has a good chance to review it before the meeting. It would be appreciated. All right. Next, I'm gonna handle items 6 and 7 together. 6 is the court allocation, and 7 is the Regional Water Memorandum of Understanding. Those both deal with the courts is the contribution from the city of Avon and from the village of Sheffield Village, regarding the cost for the court that we pay and that should be shared more equally, along with, on the utilities end, is what the utilities department is receiving from us in terms of services that we render to them. As an example, finance services, finance director, payroll services, those are the like. So those are both us trying to recoup costs from these 3 entities. Go ahead, Mr. Crosby. Anything
Yes,
further
the
on
only
that?
thing I wanted to add to that is for regional water, we do have a tentative memorandum of understanding that is currently being reviewed by our law directors. And the court allocation is also that's being reviewed.
Yeah,
At
Mr.
this
Ebert,
time, so we'll provide that information to council as soon.
any comments on those?
know that we're actually reviewing them now and also with the various cities, also with law directors. We've had discussions with the court concerning where we're at with the situations.
All right.
Because they haven't been reviewed in quite some time.
As we know, City of Avon's really starting to
Starting
take
to grow.
over a lot of the court services, and we really ought to be sharing those on a more equitable basis.
Agreed.
Including the rent for the building, as an example. Anything from the committee? Mr. Shamir, were you gonna have? Okay. All right. Thank you. And the last thing on the agenda is the Moore Road Purchase Agreement. As we discussed prior meetings, there was discussion of another parcel along Moore Road that utilities had been working on. I was advised, I did ask to have that purchase agreement put out before the Easter holiday. I don't know if it did get out or if everyone got to see it, but it's in follow-up, and utilities has asked for us to pass this on a second reading after we've had a chance to do the first reading and review it more thoroughly. But hopefully you all had it at least over a week ago to review for the additional purchase of the land that is right next door to the 720 Moore Road that the utilities already, we've already passed for purchase. Anyone from the committee? Yes, Ms. Fender? No, okay. Anybody else? All right, well, I would like to move that to be sent on to the collective committee meeting and then on to council for first reading this evening.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we will do that. Well, thank you all. That concludes the agenda items other than public input. Anyone wishing to come forward to discuss any matters discussed during the Finance Committee meeting portion of this collective committee meeting has 3 minutes to come forward and discuss any of the topics that were on the agenda. Good evening again, Mr. Phillips.
Good evening, Gerald Phillips, Avon Lake, 20 years resident, concerned citizen. Income tax that's going to be on the ballot. You know, I've been going to meetings, looking at data, and I'm trying to justify why we are in this dilemma. I mean, I looked at the CAFRA, which says that our population has increased less than 3,000 in the last 10 years. And our income tax went from 10 million to almost 19 million. I've heard that, well, you know, the reason why we need the income tax is because, you know, we have increased services because of 2,500 people, okay? If we need services and income tax increase for 2,500 people, what are we gonna do when we add 2,400 people from the lake power plant, okay? We're gonna have to have an income tax increase? I mean, the logic would be, that's what the mayor told me. I don't know if that's true. Also, there was a chart that showed that council, who has the ability to appropriate money, for the income tax to the general fund for capital, bond retirement, and recreation for 24, 25, and 26, what they're projecting is almost nil. And if you consider what the past history was, for previous to 2024, we were spending $2.5 to $3 million on capital improvements. So we shortchanged ourselves $6 million to $9 million for 3 years. Is that why we need an increase in income tax? Because we didn't put our money in capital improvements, and we had to shift money to the general fund because of extra spending? That's what it seems to me. That's what it seems to me. Avon Lake Regional Water. They just bought 75 acres. I don't know if that purchase agreement is for the 75 acres, but they have that 75 acres. They bought 48 acres from ALERG. Yeah, and they had already 40 acres. So Avon Lake Regional Water has 200 acres of land. That is far in excess of what they need. They are a business. They're a proprietary fund. Their only purpose is to provide water and sewer system service. They're not an investment business. They're not an economic development, okay? I heard the mayor, well, they bought the 75 acres because we're going to develop it. Avon Lake Regional Water cannot do that. That's illegal, all right? It should be, that's 200 acres that ultimately is going to raise our rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Can I clarify a point?
In 1 second. Let's wait for Mr. Zimmerman to finish.
William Zimmerman. So I have a question, as Mr. Phillips was asking. So 75 acres, and now we're buying land adjacent to that? Can I get an address on that, an actual place, not just a
Sure you
parcel
can.
number?
It's directly to the north of that property. It's a square that was cut out in the prior purchase agreement that someone else owned, and there's,
I have a map in my car. I'll get it during the break.
that's what it is.
Come back.
All right?
Because I don't understand why we keep buying more land. If the maps that I'm seeing now about shoving water, Avon Lake Regional Water is going to sell water to the commissioners of the county so that they can push water towards Vermillion to service that, because they don't have the ability to get it. And yet, we were told that it was supposed to be a high pressure line that's going to run through by the towers. And so my understanding is you could have gotten an easement instead of just buying the land. But now we're making it an investment, or we're going to flip it, or I have no idea what it is because we don't get the information. So I again, all of with Mr. Monroe being in the position he is at Avon Lake Regional Water and now part of this one Lorain County as a board member, this all stinks to me. This is influence. This is improper. There's no way this gentleman should be in both of these positions. So as far as the income tax, we've pretty much concluded that we're not going to get enough money from it to save our roads. Get a few $1 million that we're going to put in on it. It's been poor planning, both planning and financially. And so from my standpoint, why would the citizens of Avon Lake want to vote yes for this? There isn't a good reason that I can come up with. Should all vote no, and the city will have to learn how to fund things another way. Maybe you'll cut some jobs and get rid of these people that are making over $100,000 a year.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Anyone else wishing to come forward? All right, seeing none, I would move to adjourn the Finance Committee. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, you did have something
That's
you
all
wanted
right.
to say. I apologize.
I just want to clarify a statement that Mr. Phillips made, that he indicated that Avon Lake Regional Water was going to develop that property. That is not true. They're using that water to expand their ETLs. Once they're done, the land will become available for development. Avon Lake Regional Water will not be developing that land. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, I would then move to adjourn the Finance Committee meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The Finance Committee portion of this meeting has concluded. So we move on to our collective committee meeting. The first thing that is on the, next thing on, I guess is the right terminology, is the Finance Committee. We moved the Moore Road purchase agreement over to the collective committee meeting, which will now be placed on the agenda for first reading tonight. Any more comments or questions on that? All right, seeing none, I turn the meeting over to Mr. Kaz, Public Safety and Health Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. We have one item to discuss with this collective committee meeting, and that is a one-day beer permit in Miller Road Park for Avon Lake's Birthday Party Field Games Championship on Saturday, June the 6th, 2026. In our packet for the council meeting following this collective committee meeting is the draft of the ordinance, or the resolution, I should say. It's an ordinance. And this would be for a one-day liquor license permit, beer permit, for the park to be held at 10 a.m., for the hours of 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this is a part of the Avon Lake Historical Society's Field Games Championships, which are going to be taking place at Miller Road Park. They're going to have a day full of all kinds of traditional old-time games, the sack races and things like that. And they want to have I believe it's just going to be a single beer vendor. And it would be, again, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It would be 1 hour before the event starts and then 1 hour after the event is complete. This has been reviewed by the chief of police, and he had no objections to it. I will be asking for passage on a second reading in 2 weeks. The reason for that is, if we look at the date again, it's June the 6th, 2026, and that date is closer, is fast approaching, and this committee would need the time to submit the paperwork down to Columbus to get it approved. There has been no issues with similar types of events at Miller Road Park in the past. And again, I'll be asking for suspension of the rules and passage with the emergency in 2 weeks. So that way this group can expedite this and get everything in place in time for June the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Kaz. Any questions for him on that? All right. Then we're moving on to the Public Service Committee. Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Thank you. I actually have 3 items, so the 2 that are printed here, and then I'm going to be adding one. So the first one has to do with advertise for bids for Walker Road paving project phase 6. At the next meeting, we're going to go out for a motion, asking our colleagues if it's okay for us to go out and advertise for that project. This has been discussed for over a year. It's time that we move forward. Are there any questions? That's from Jay Cox to
Any questions?
through Lear.
I don't see any.
Okay, then we'll
Your
move on
next
to the
item.
next one. Great. Okay, design services for Country Club Drive Bridge Replacement Project. That's going to be underneath the first reading. It did come out of the Public Service Committee. It was pointed out to us that this bridge needed to be replaced, and we'd like to go out for design services for Country Club. Mr. Liskovic, do you have anything else you want to add to that discussion?
Sure. Additionally, too, with the Country Club Bridge replacement, which was put on our radar through annual bridge inspections conducted through ODOT, we do have OPWC funding for that bridge. And with regards to the fee proposal from American Structure Point, we did go out for RFQs. We had 2 firms submit, LBJ and American Structure Point. We chose American Structure Point. and their fee proposal is under what we had budgeted for this year.
Thank you. And all of council members have received the entire packet for structure and also the short packet. Are there any questions?
Mr. Liskovic, what was the budget amount, if you have it with you?
I don't remember specifically, but I think it was around 170-ish.
And this contract's for $158,726.96.
And that would be for if we had to use all the as authorized services too.
Right.
So there is potential to be, depending on what they get in field survey, to not have to execute all of that.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, item 3.
Okay, item 3. For the people at home, you can follow along with us. For those in here, we have it up on the board. A year ago, the Tree Commission presented to the Public Service Committee an idea that's called Plant a Tree, Grow a Legacy. And it would be replacing the memorial trees that unfortunately don't always make it. So when you go to see Uncle Bill's tree and it's gone, it brings back all those sad memories. People are also planting trees for celebration for their 50th wedding anniversary or for whatever. So this is a program that's going across the United States, and we did put it into effect last year, but we didn't have the infrastructure for it. We now do. So it's called Plant a Tree, Grow a Legacy. It's to honor a loved one or a special occasion and donate in support of the planting and stewardship of the community trees in Avon Lake's urban forest. And I'm going to be showing you in just a minute a box that's at the library that is a locked box. You can place your contribution in a sealed envelope and drop it into the secured donation box, and then record the reason for your donation in the Tree Legacy book. The next one that I'm going to show you is the actual picture of it over at the library. And you can see there's the poster that I just showed you. Here's the box. And we're going to kind of come in so you can see this book. There's a book there that is a beautiful leather-bound book. It's something that will be preserved for a long time. And if you look at the side of the box over in this section where I'm using my cursor, there is a pocket that will then house envelopes. And on the envelope, there's going to be a statement that you can fill out. Please fill it out. Only if you fill out this statement can the finance department, who will be collecting these envelopes, be able to submit to you an acknowledgement letter so you can use it when you complete your taxes. And this is something that's going to be in effect at the library. It'll be finished. The envelopes will be in place by Friday. Our Community Technologies Department, I want to thank them for not only creating the beautiful poster, but also the rest of the language that's here. And at the next meeting, there's going to be a dedication for this program. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mrs. Fenderbosh?
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, that almost gets us to the legislation portion of the collective committee meeting, but I do have a request from Mrs. Goodwin to discuss a baseball, softball financial report that she dropped off for everybody. So
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think the first page that you have in front of you is the baseball, softball financial report for 2025. However, what is being proposed by the Parks and Rec Commission is, and this just might be my lack of knowledge of prior years, but I don't believe that there are rental fees in place for the fields. So you will have there's another set of information here that's the proposed field use fees for baseball. My understanding is that these are new, that this was not in place before, and that these are being implemented for the first time. I'm not sure if I'm correct in that statement, but if anyone can clarify, that would be great. So obviously, if this is something that's new, I think this is something we should be taking advantage of. I did want to provide, though, the kind of the baseball, softball financial report from 2025, just so that people, that everyone kind of had the full picture of what the cost of the maintenance and registrations and things like that were previously, and then what would be introduced. Obviously, I think as income, that would be, that's a positive. So I would assume that since baseball season's here, that they're going to want this pretty quickly. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone had the information, and I'm happy to return to them with any questions if that's necessary, and get more information if that is also warranted. The last sheet that you have is the motion that they propose out of the committee meeting.
So, I'm sorry. Well, I'm not on your committee, so who's on the committee with you?
That's just it. That's the appointment. That's
Right.
just me.
So I guess I will ask you, are they gonna get us the legislation so we can adjust the fee schedule? Is the recreation department gonna get that to us so we can move on that? I don't know that, I would like to see us start recouping some of the costs that we have, particularly in the maintenance of the fields. It looks like the total expenses are like $56,000.
Yes. So I think Valerie, if you could help me out on that.
Since I have the rates or the new fees, I will put together an ordinance for the law director to review. And
Okay.
That's the intention of the department, the commission, and then it'll be presented to council.
Are you gonna be looking at, I would suspect, a suspension of the rules
I would think so. Yes. Yeah.
and immediate
Yep.
passage?
Mhm.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Goodwin? I'm not seeing any, so thank you for bringing this forward to us. All right, next is legislation. We have the third reading of Resolution 26-18, accepting a grant. Any questions or comments on that? Ms. Gentry, that's your item? Under third readings?
So, yeah, this grant is from NOPEC, and we use this money to make to purchase things like LED lights to make the city more environmentally friendly.
Any questions or comments on that item? Seeing none, we'll move on to second readings. Mr. Cos.
Yeah, the second reading of ordinance number 2631, I will address this more in the next meeting coming up immediately following this one.
All right, any questions? All right, first readings is next. We have a first reading coming for the Avon Lake Municipal Utilities purchase of property over off of Moore Road. Is there any other first readings that we're gonna be looking at? Yes, I know you have a couple, Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Right, I have one with structure. American Structure we just spoke about. The proposal and agreement for professional services for Country Club Bridge replacement.
And we're also gonna have the lakefront mixed use and the B3 rezoning of the old CEI property.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Also, ordinance 2634, which is the Avon Lake Birthday Field Games liquor license permit.
Right, yeah, we just discussed that. Going over. All right, any comments or questions on the first readings coming forward? All right, seeing none, any miscellaneous business and announcements? I have here in my packet that the Avon the Lake Garden Club is having its plant sale on Saturday, May 9th, from 9 to noon at the Goddard School parking on 83. Also, to remind everyone that we are having a public hearing on the, I know that we've said it a lot of times, but I'm really hoping to hear from folks on the mixed-use overlay. And then the other announcement that I would have is that tomorrow is the Harlem Wizards at the Avon Lake High School. City Council has a table that's going to be manned by us. Mrs. Goodwin and Mrs. Fenderbosch have taken the lead on that. I plan on helping out as well, but if there's any council members that could lend a hand, we'd appreciate it. Okay, and then you're holding something up and I can't see what that says from here.
Mr. Mayor, I think is going to want to talk to this about the grand reopening and dedication ceremony for ALPS.
Yeah, for my report, I'll cover that.
Okay. Any other miscellaneous business and announcements? Seeing none, I will adjourn the collective committee meeting at 9:06. All right, let's take about 4 or 5 minutes and we'll reconvene. All right, I'm going to call to order the council meeting for today, April 13th following the collective committee meeting. It is now 9:13. We have the Pledge of Allegiance to begin. Mr. Reynolds, if you'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. If the clerk would call the roll, please.
Mrs. Fenderbosch?
Here.
Ms. Gentry?
Here.
Mrs. Goodwin?
Here.
Mr. Cos?
Here.
Mr. Reynolds?
Here.
Mr. Shamir?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mayor Spetzel?
Here.
Law Director Ebert?
Here.
Finance Director Crossy?
Here.
Public Works Director Liskovic?
Here.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of March 16th, 2026 special council meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes as presented to us by the clerk? Does anyone have any changes or correction to those minutes from that meeting? Seeing none, the minutes from March 16th will be approved as submitted. Next is the March 23rd council meeting of 2026. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes as well? Any changes, corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, those minutes will be approved as well. Any correspondence? Is that a hand up, Ms. Gentry?
It was a lengthy one. Saying they're in opposition to 26, 36, and 37.
Is that the letter from,
Yeah,
yeah,
Do we need
Mrs.
to read
Schneider,
that?
yeah, across the street?
yeah. What did you say?
Okay. Yes.
Am I supposed to read it? I don't know.
No, I think that the clerk has it.
Okay.
I think we've all read it.
Okay.
We appreciate Mrs. Schneider providing that correspondence to us, and I would just ask that it be reflected in the minutes of her opposition, as she set forth in that letter. Any further correspondence?
Opposition to what?
It was opposition to the mixed overlay.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to mumble on everybody there. All right. Next is a dedication. Plant a Tree, Grow a Legacy program presented to the Tree Commission. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. We did have a couple members of the Tree Commission present earlier. I do think due to the length of the meeting, they had to go home. So instead of presenting with them directly, and I will certainly get that to the Tree Commission, I will just read it from here then. And this is the program that was discussed by Councilwoman Fenderbosch earlier, Plant a Tree, Grow a Legacy. This dedication, Avon Lake is proud to be recognized as a Tree City USA for 33 consecutive years for its commitment to planting, growing, and maintaining trees to benefit the community. In April 2025, the Plant a Tree, Grow a Legacy program was created as an endearing expression of honor, remembrance, and celebration. And I have a poem that was included within this dedication. With each tree placed into the earth, a story begins of lives remembered and lives celebrated, of beginnings marked and journeys honored, of gratitude, love, and achievement. These trees stand as living tributes, commemorating milestones both great and small, honoring those who have come before us and celebrating the moments that define us. In their branches, we find joy and remembrance intertwined. In their roots, a foundation of shared history and hope. Rooted in the present, reaching toward tomorrow, each tree carries forward a legacy, growing alongside the community it serves and bearing witness to generations yet to come. Now, therefore, I, Mark A. Spetzel, Mayor of Avon Lake, do hereby dedicate the Plant a Tree, Grow a Legacy program to the citizens of Avon Lake. Further, I urge all community members to preserve and protect our natural resources for the well-being of this and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very
There
much.
you go.
sir. Thank you.
All right, any other comments on that? I too thank the folks that were here. Sorry we weren't able to get to them quicker. Next on the agenda is public input. Members of the public shall be permitted to speak only once, up to 5 minutes on any topics. Come on forward, state your name, and let us know where you're from. Welcome back, Mr. Phillips.
Gerald Phillips, resident for 20 years. I hope everybody had a very happy Easter. I know I did, because prior to Easter, on March 31st, I got a ruling from the Supreme Court of Ohio on our public records case involving the Brownfield. By a 7-0 decision, they ordered Avon Lakes, the CIC, and the Brownfield Committee to produce those meeting minutes from their illegal meetings. On the 30th, I got a decision from the 9th District Court of Appeals, which reversed the dismissal of the case involving the removal of the mayor. So it was a good week. I'm sure there'll be further confrontation and back and forth. I've already received some pleadings in connection with that. I would like copies of the Verdantis report that says that quality discharging from the pond. If there is a report that it meets EPA guidelines, I'd like a copy of the Osborne report and this draft of this other report. I'd like a copy of the letter that was sent to Ms. Gentry about opposition. And I'd like a copy of any CIC applicants. Now I want to talk about the Avon Lake Regional Water. How shocked and appalled I am about this city and people involved in this city. On the day after Labor Day, it was presented to council, and there was a big rush. We had to get it done. They wanted to get it done and have it all finished in October. Prior to that meeting, the Avon Lake Regional Board, 5 members, met and unanimously approved that. And what they proved was the worst deal you could possibly imagine for the city. A board where we would get only 1/3 interest, where we would lease a $100 million asset for $2 a year, where we would sell that asset at a discounted value. Now, I didn't think anything could get worse, okay? Then we find out from Mr. Logan that as part of that, okay, Lorca was going to be a party and the county was. Now, the county wasn't going to put in $1. Avon Lake Regional Water would have to fund the cash flow and working capital until it got operative. And Lorca wasn't giving anything. What Lorca was getting, they were going to get their debt forgiven. They owe the city, they owe Avon Lake Regional Water $19 million, 15 for sewers, 4 for water. That was just even more shocking. More shocking. And involved at the commissioners meeting following the regionalization on the west side and looking at the $67.4 million application to Jobs Ohio in Columbus to get that fund to do that. I found out there was a application, letter of interest that was sent to Columbus, to that fund, and an application. And in the application it said what collateral was going to be provided for the $67.4 million loan, in addition to the land. And you know what I found out? On that application, it said Avon Lake Regional Water assets were going to be pledged for that loan and the revenues. Now, who did that? We heard about Mr. Monroe being with One Jobs Lorraine. He's wearing two hats. He's the one that pushed the board for a 5-0 vote. He needs to be removed. He needs to be removed. He's got a conflict of interest. I mean, I like to know who pledged the assets and who sent an email to the applicant at the county to pledge those assets and put it in an application. Who did it? You know, I'm just astonished at what I keep finding out what's going on in this city. You know, Avon Lake Regional Water is the crown jewel. And I don't know why we even consider joining that regional plan. That deal sucked. It was terrible. And we're going to pledge a $100 million asset? Who did that? We need a special prosecutor to find out who did that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Anyone else wishing to speak, come forward.
William Zimmerman, beautiful Avon Lake.
Good evening again, Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm truly joyed. 7-0 was the verdict by the Ohio Supreme Court. That shows the corruption in our city. Not a frivolous lawsuit, money well spent, to show that the citizens should be concerned about the city council and the committees below it. The Brownfield Committee was corrupt. I believe it still is to this day. Problem is, we never see anybody from it anymore. CSE, after 2 years, has been rejuvenated, trying to do it over again. Because our community obviously could use some improvement. Again, not a frivolous lawsuit. Citizens need to realize whatever the mayor was spewing back then, 15 months ago, was inaccurate. Mr. Zach Arnold, former Mayor Zilka, all of whom were on that committee, we're not telling the truth. So now you have to provide us with the minutes from the meetings. Will we ever see any? Unfortunately, I doubt it. Because Mr. Esborn, who's not here anymore, was on that committee and he was the secretary and he was supposed to take the minutes. Another way of just trying to sweep something under the rug. Moving on. Nobody cares. It's a sad city we're living in these days. I hope that the few members that are remaining who are old school, old guard, will be considering retirement shortly. So I would also like to comment about the water company, because I'm with Gerald in this matter. I'm finding all these things out one after another. He's a member of the county board. These people are supposedly a nonprofit organization that's moving forward for the better interests of the Lorain County, and he's in a place of influence that he is. I already told you the guy who's representing the Clearwater deal has made almost $500,000. Monthly checks still going to him because he's still pushing it. And I still don't understand how the water company and the city operate under the same tax code. From my standpoint, that's illegal. I don't know. I'm not an accountant. Illegal would be what I would say. And here we are coming back around now to the overlay. Sat here about other committees, been to the planning commission, talked about how the fact that things weren't right there at those meetings. I find it interesting now, though, that the gentleman who was with the Shara people doesn't come to the meetings anymore. The one who threatened me. Wonder why that is. At some point, there has to be a better way. Better leadership so that we can move forward. This project is going to be horrible on the manner in which we're taking tasks to take care of it now. I don't believe for a second it will come off the ground. And I surely believe that the whole city of Avon Lake will be paying more and more and more. And I'm not just talking about a TIF yet. More road will have to be widened and lengthened, so will Miller. Because there's going to be mass congestion over there. Nobody's thinking that far out into the future. So, speaking about the future, you guys have here in your public hearing that it's April 26th of 2027. I don't think that's accurate.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Anyone else wishing to come forward? All right, seeing none, I'm going to conclude the public input section, and we're going to start with reports. Mayor, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I just want to announce again that the League of Women Voters is hosting a presentation and panel discussion on the power plant property, which is of much discussion these days. This will be held April 22nd at 7 p.m. in the gallery at the Avon Lake Public Library. We will also be having a formal opening of ALPS this Friday, April 24th, not this Friday, on Friday, April 24th at 10 a.m. If you've been by there in this warm weather, it's even busier than ever. It's packed parking lots. It's a great thing to see. Reminded everybody, the primary special election day is Tuesday, May 5th. Please get out and vote. Monday, May 25th will be our Memorial Day parade and services. We encourage everybody to come out for that. It's always a very somber as well as enjoyable parade. I also want to announce that Public Works will be opening our restrooms this week. Hopefully we get them all open for the nice weather we're having. Issue 13 is on the ballot. This is the proposed increase to the income tax from 1.5% to 1.9% to fund our roads and capital improvements program. It's on the ballot May 5th. You can visit our website for additional information or check out our social media. Or you could email myself or Finance Director Beth Crossy. We've been answering a lot of questions. We're happy to do that if you want to get in touch with us directly. We're still looking for residents who might be interested in boards and commissions. Again, that would be the Community Improvement Corporation and also the Civil Service Commission. And that is all I have, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions from council for the mayor? Seeing none, next is a council president report. Again, I would remind everyone that the public hearing on the mixed-use overlay is April 27th, 2026. As Mr. Zimmerman so pointed out, there was a typographical mistake in terms of the date on our agendas that went out over the weekend. So that's part of why I'm making sure to announce it like for the 16th time tonight. The Harlem Wizards game tomorrow at the high school, there'll be a council table there where people can come up and talk to us. Again, I would ask council members if they're available to help to be there. And the mayor, my last thing is that the mayor did mention the parade on Memorial Day. I don't know if you've gotten any correspondence from anyone. I did get something from Mr. Warner, who is working on that parade. If you're going to walk in it, please let us know. And that's all I have for my report this evening. Anyone have any questions for me at all? All right, on to the law director.
Yes, thank you,
Mr.
President. Thank you. I want to going to just speak to the two cases that Mr. Phillips and Mr. Zimmerman indicated. They have their own interpretation. But in the Supreme Court case, the court said the city does not have to produce any records pertaining to the Brownfield Committee if they do not exist. The exception is the extent the Brownfield Committee had actual prearranged meetings and which a majority of its members were present and the public business was discussed, the committee must go back and create the business for those meetings and produce them. That will be done pursuant to the ruling, probably within the next week. We'll have them done. Yes. They also indicated that Attorney Phillips does not get any attorney fees or statutory damages. That issue he just recently appealed, I believe, this week, trying to get that to be reconsidered. On the probate case that we're talking about, the Court of Appeals, the court indicated that the Lorraine County probate code does not apply to the city, so it dismissed the provision that requires only the constitute the mayor for malfeasance. That was dismissed. They wanted a more analysis and arguments, so they're sending it back to the probate court for a more detailed decision, specifically talking about home rule. So that is not the interpretation that I take from the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court concerning those two matters. I will report back when the subsequent opinions are ruled on that case, on the cases. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Eber? All right, seeing none. On to the finance director.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Any questions for the finance director? Seeing none. Mr. Liskovic, you're up.
Yeah, good evening. Just a couple items to just go over. One, I just want to just reinforce that we do have crews out actively with branch collection, rotary repairs, and parks cleanup. We will be transitioning from our winter cold mix into a hot asphalt mix for repairs coming up before the end of this month. Additionally, just want to also provide some early insight into the electric bridge replacement that will be happening this summer. We're working right now. There's two questions that need to be resolved that we're working for answers on as far as the final dates on schedule. But we are looking for that to kick off after school lets out. And it's about an 11-week project, and it will result in a full closure of Electric Boulevard to conduct the work. Additionally, we are weather permitting and smooth seas tomorrow. We are also looking to have our the dredging work start out at the boat launch. Lake conditions, ice conditions earlier in the season have just slowed things down a little bit, but they are mobilizing in first thing tomorrow morning on that work. And I think that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Liskovic. Any questions for the Public Works Director? Yes, Mrs. Goodwin.
Thank you. Just on the note of Alps too, will the driveway from Blesser be, like, the western driveway be accessible to get to the park?
Yes, during the construction.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just clarifying. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Liskovic? When does that this dredging have to be done by? When's the deadline for the ODNR?
Started before April 15th.
We have to be done by April 15th?
No, we have to be started.
Is there a conclusion date we have to be?
The project is speculated, or not speculated, but they project about 8 days to do the work. But again, we have to be started, so they're working to be started tomorrow on it. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Liskovic? All right, I missed one, I'm sorry. Mrs. Fenderbosh.
I'm sorry, this is very delayed. It's actually a question for Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, at what end are you going to be having the dedication of Alps? The Lake Road or the electric?
It'll be off Electric Road by the main entrance.
Thank you.
By with the picnic pavilions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. we're on to the standing committees. First one up is Buildings and Utility, Ms. Gentry.
There's a communications meeting which rolls up into Building and Utilities on April 16th. And then the Building and Utilities just met tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Gentry? Yes, Mr. Shamir.
Do we have any dates of when First Energy is going to come in and answer some of the questions that
Yeah.
residents have?
I had tried to get him to come in tonight, but he wasn't able to make it. So I have a communication with him. I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Next, we have Economic Development Committee, Mr. Shamir.
Yes, our next Economic Development Committee meeting will be April 20th at 6 p.m. in these chambers, in this chamber. Also, we had a CIC meeting where we discussed economic recovery and resiliency way forward, as well as discussing the evolution of the Job Growth Incentive Program. Furthermore, we touched on the Economic Development Strategy Framework, which is now with the administration, and where it goes from there, and effectively the ball is with Mr. Esborn and his team. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the Chair of the Economic Development Committee, Mr. Shamir? Seeing none, we're on to Mrs. Goodwin. Environmental.
Thank you. I don't have anything for tonight other than tomorrow is the Environmental Advisory Board meeting that falls under the Environmental Committee. And they are having, for anyone not attending the Harlem Wizards game, they are having a presentation from Rust Belt Riders, which is the local composting program that we are trying to kind of speed up and get more people involved with. So if you want to learn more about that tomorrow night, that's a great opportunity to do so. They'll be meeting at 6:30 p.m. in the library. And then absolutely, because we're hoping that that will spur some other items, that we will have our committee meeting at the next CCM.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions for the Chair of the Environmental Committee, Mrs. Goodwin? Seeing none, next is the Finance Committee meeting. We did have our Finance Committee meeting tonight. We discussed several things, including being able to be reimbursed for expenses for both the courts and the Utilities Department. We have on the agenda tonight a first reading, the purchase of a property on Moore Road in conjunction with the prior purchase by the utilities of 720 Moore Road. The last thing I would say is that we will have our next Finance Committee meeting as part of the collective committee meeting scheduled on May 4th, and I think that that's the right calendar date. If not, I'm sure someone will correct me along the way.
You're correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Finance? Moving on to Human Resources, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Just this evening, I want to report that 3 interviews have been held and 2 of them are being scheduled for second interviews for the engineering position. So that is good news. There's progress being made there, and I would like to have the next HR committee meeting on April 20th before the CCM.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Reynolds, Chair of the Human Resources Committee? All right, seeing none, we're on to Public Safety and Health. Mr. Kaz.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. The next meeting of the Public Safety and Health Committee will be held on Wednesday, April the 15th at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. The agenda has been circulated and the minutes as well too from the March meeting. And I can anticipate that one of the items that are on this agenda, which is the helmet law update, we will be discussing next week at the collective committee meeting here. And I'll have more information on that obviously next week, and obviously Wednesday as well too. Thank you.
Thank you. That's this Wednesday?
This Wednesday.
At 5:30 or 6?
The 15th at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kaz? All right, seeing none, we're on to Mrs. Fenderbosh, Public Service Chair.
Thank you. We have two items on our agenda tonight, as was mentioned at the previous meeting. The first one is a motion authorizing the city engineer or the Public Works Director to advertise for bids for the Walker Road paving project. And the second one is the first reading. We're going to ask for a vote at the second reading, having to do with an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with American Structure Point, Inc., and declaring an emergency at that point. The next meeting for public service is going to be May the 6th at 5:30 in these chambers.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Fenderbosh? Seeing none, we're on to Planning Commission. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you. This evening, we have two things on the agenda, as we spoke of earlier in the CCM, the mixed-use overlay and the rezoning, both up for first reading. And we have a public hearing on both of them on April 27th, 2026.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Reynolds? All right, seeing none, on to Mayor Spetzel regarding the Zoning Board of Appeals.
There was no meeting in March, and the next meeting is April 29th.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Spetzel regarding zoning board? All right, seeing none, we're going to Parks and Recreation Commission. Mrs. Goodwin.
Thank you. As I brought earlier to the CCM, the fee structure or the fee for baseball, that's really it. And then we did get in our last meeting, we did get a preliminary look at the parks survey that went out. I don't think it was at all near its like final presentation, but because our next meeting isn't until the end of May, I would assume everyone would be interested in seeing some of those results. So I will work with Aaron to get something in front of everyone for just a basic review. Would CCM, or would that be, what would be the best venue to present?
Why don't you try to get it to the CCM if you get the information?
Sure.
We can handle it at the next CCM or the one after that.
Yep.
Okay.
I just want to confirm that whatever is given is like the most final, because I think he was letting it go for a couple more weeks.
Yeah, so if it's not ready by next Monday, then we'll see it on the 4th, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Goodwin? All right, seeing none. Special committee reports. Any special committees? Yes, Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Thank you, and I want to thank everybody for supporting the Tree Commission. They're really a strong, dedicated group of individuals. There's 5 of them, and I want to announce that on May the 14th, there will be an awards celebration that our city has been invited to, and we will be represented by Public Works Director John Liskovic, along with some of the Tree Commission members, when we receive the Tree City USA and the Growth Award. Very few communities receive Growth Awards. We've been receiving Growth Awards consistently for the last a couple of years. The next Tree Commission meeting is going to be May the 13th at 6 p.m. And all are invited at the old firehouse. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Fenderbosh? Any other special committee committee reports? Seeing none, we're on to the motion portion of our agenda, and I would call on Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Thank you. I move to authorize the city engineer or the Public Works Director to advertise for bids for the Walker Road paving project, Phase 6.
Questions? Comments?
In discussion? Okay.
Discussion.
In discussion, we've been long waiting for this. This is going to be Walker Road from Jake Hawks through the intersection of Lear Road, and it's a major area. And one of the things that's going to be happening is that the intersection change lights, instead of just being Wi-Fi'd in on the pavement, are going to be operated from up above. It's a more efficient way, and it will cost us less down the road because we won't have to redo, every time that we redo the street, have to pay thousands of dollars again to put another sensor into the streets. Mr. Liskovic, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Oh, I think you captured it pretty well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any questions? All right, Ms. Rosmarin, if you would please call the roll.
Mrs. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Koss,
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
Mr. Shamir,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Fenderbosh,
Yes.
Ms. Gentry.
Yes.
All right, that leads us to the legislation portion of the evening. If Ms. Rosmarin would read by title only, resolution number 26-18, please.
A resolution accepting a grant in the amount of $69,072 from the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council 2026 Energized Community Grant and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Gentry,
Yes, I move for passage of Resolution 2618.
discussion.
This is the NOPEC grant that we receive annually for, to be used for anything that would make the city more energy efficient.
Any questions for Ms. Gentry? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Koss,
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
Mr. Shamir,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes,
Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Yes.
Ms. Gentry.
Yes.
thank you, that has passed. We're on to second readings. If the clerk would read by title only, ordinance number 26-31, please.
An ordinance allowing beer and wine to be sold, served, dispensed, and consumed for one day at Summerfest to be held at Miller Road Park on June 20th, 2026, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Kaz.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This is the second of 3 readings for ordinance number 26-31. This will allow for basically a one-day liquor license or beer and wine license to be sold at Miller Road Park on June the 20th, 2026 for the now second annual Summerfest that the city puts on. This event debuted last year and was a big success. The police department had no objections, the police chief had no objections to this, and there were no issues last year at the event. This did pass through the Public Safety and Health Committee with a unanimous vote of support. And again, I'll be asking for passage at the next meeting of City Council on the third reading.
Thank you, Mr. Kaz. Any questions for Mr. Kaz? Seeing none, we'll move on to first readings. The clerk would read by title only, ordinance number 26-33.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a purchase agreement for Lorraine County permanent parcel number 040000000107 located at Moore Road, Avon Lake, Ohio, from Shibley Solvents and Chemicals Company Incorporated, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance number 26-33 for a parcel located along the parcel at 720 Moore Road that the utilities recently purchased. The utilities has asked that we suspend the rules on the second reading in order to consummate this purchase of the property as a result of there's several taxes that are owed and the like on the property in order that we can get the property transferred to the utilities. Any questions for me on this item? Seeing none, that concludes the first reading of ordinance number 26-33. If the clerk would read by title only, ordinance number 26-34.
An ordinance allowing beer to be sold, served, dispensed, and consumed for one day for Avon Lake's Birthday Party Field Games Championship to be held at Miller Road Park on June 6, 2026, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Kaz.
Yeah, thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance 26-34. Similar to my comments for the previous ordinance of 26-31, this is for a liquor license or one-day license to serve beer at this event from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is for the Avon Lake Birthday Party Field Games Championships at Miller Road. This has been reviewed by the Avon Lake Police Department and the police chief, and there are no objections. There will be a police presence at this event, as we have with all of these events that have beer or alcohol in the parks. And I'll be asking for suspension of the rule next week and passage on the second reading due to the fast approaching June 6, 2026 date and the time it will take to submit this for the permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cos. Any questions for Mr. Cos as the rain comes pouring down? All right, seeing none. If the clerk, that concludes the first reading of ordinance 26-34. If the clerk would read by title only, ordinance number 26-35.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with American Structure Point Incorporated and declaring an emergency.
Mrs. Fenderbosh.
Thank you. As was previously said, this is the first reading. I plan on going 2 readings and asking for a vote. The city engineer solicited requests for qualifications for engineering design services for the Country Club Drive Bridge replacement over Hyder Ditch, which is also out here. The city engineer, having reviewed the RFQ submitted, selected American Structure Point, Inc. of Cleveland for the engineering design services. And their work shall not exceed $158,726.96. All of council has received the large packet that they submitted. This ordinance will be declared an emergency measure, the emergency being the necessity of replacing the bridge on Country Club Drive over Hyder Ditch. This is for the public health, safety, and welfare of the public. And this ordinance, when voted and passed, will go into effect in full force immediately after passage and the approval by the mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Fenderbosh? Seeing none, that concludes the first reading of ordinance number 26-35. If the clerk would read by title only, please. Ordinance number 26-36.
An ordinance enacting Avon Lake Code of Ordinance, Chapter 1219, Lakefront Mixed Use Overlay District.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you. This is the first reading of the ordinance 26-36, the mixed-use overlay. As indicated earlier, there will be obviously robust discussion on this. This will go 3 readings, of course. And there's a public hearing on April 27th, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Does any councilman have any other further questions? Yes, Mr. Shamir.
It's more of a comment. My recommendation is to send this back to planning to look at the infrastructure requirement and the economics as stipulated in the Economic Recovery and Resiliency Plan. What we're doing here is we're zoning capacity without understanding the market, without understanding the financial implications or the tax impacts. So that's where my recommendation is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shamir. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, that concludes the first reading of ordinance number 26-36. If the clerk would please read by title only, ordinance number 26-37.
An ordinance rezoning a 43.23 acre site at 33570 Lake Road from General Industrial I-2 and Single Family Residence R-1A to Special Commerce District B-3.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance 26-37. This is a rezoning, as the title indicates, from industrial and single-family residence to a special commerce district B3. There will be a public hearing on April 27th, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Any further comments or questions? Comment?
Comment.
Yes, Mr. Shamir.
My comments for the previous applies to this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The record, I'm sure, will be noted by Ms. Rosberry. All right. That concludes the first reading of 26-37. Any miscellaneous business and/or announcements? Seeing none? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
a
just
little
to-
late again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just to remind everybody that tomorrow is the Wizards, and it's over at the high school, and if you could please come with either canned goods or non-perishable box food, that would be great. We're gonna be collecting for CRS. And so many benefits here, not just for the students, but also for our CRS clientele. And we're gonna be honoring veterans. It's gonna be a wonderful, wonderful occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fenderbosh. Any other announcements or miscellaneous business? Seeing none. Mr. Kaz,
Move to adjourn.
Ms. Rossmarin, please call the roll.
Mrs. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Cos,
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
Mr. Shamir,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes,
Mrs. Fenderbosh,
Yes.
Ms. Gentry.
Yes.
thank you all. Have a great evening. Thank you for your time and attention.